So, hello folks. If you guys already had seen my part one, part two of this video blog series, you'd know um, that what are the stages been configured to establish a pipeline which automate creation of a cluster and deploying applications with Istio service mesh. Uh, with the third-party cloud provider DigitalOcean. Now, this particular pipeline can be replicated to do the same things with any cloud provider based on the fact that maybe the command line tools gonna be different and that has to be configured in different way. So as promised, in this particular video, I'll try to show you all the configuration uh, been done, and I would also like to go through the codes to tell you, like, how this configuration is actually uh, getting executed in the pipeline. So to start with, so the first stage is like creating a Kubernetes cluster, right? Now, what kind of event is that? So if I go to configure, first thing you would notice that there is a trigger. Now that trigger says that if any image uh, gets updated to my Docker registry and that image name is a simple proxy, like a specific image somehow changed, then it should trigger this particular job, create a Kubernetes cluster in DigitalOcean uh, cloud provider. Now, this trigger to take place, it has to start the moment I am changing my code in Visual Studio, and then the moment I made the code change in Visual Studio, that's getting checked in to my Git repository. So if you have seen my part 1 video, the entire pipeline has been executed within 15-20 minutes, and that's been recorded. So you can see the entire pipeline execution live in that part 1 video. So if you have already went through it, you would know that the moment I am making some changes to any of my files, the way I have set up my GitHub, uh, that check-in will trigger a automated build in Jenkins. So even before I can explain this particular setup, this particular trigger where a simple image change triggering an entire pipeline, let me tell you that how uh, the code change is actually invoking a job in Jenkins, which basically updating the container image based on the changes. So um, for an example, if you make any changes to any of your container images, any of your code, and checked in, that will start a job in Jenkins. To do that, there has to be a configuration in the specific repository. If you go to settings, you would find that there is a setting called webhooks, where you can simply mention your Jenkins, like in my case, it is jenkins.bindpro.dev. If you mention https://jenkins or the IP of your Jenkins server and then slash GitHub webhook, what will happen that Jenkins um, basically will listen to this payload URL, and any changes in this GitHub will actually trigger a build job. You have various configuration here. You can enable SSL verification, you can even disable it, and you can say which event you would like to accept. Like in this case, just any push event. So if I do a code change in my Visual Studio code and I just push it, that will trigger this particular feed. You can activate or you can deactivate it. Just to show you initial response, request, and this is the last successful request to this Jenkins bindpro.dev. A post has happened and it says that a push event just has taken place and the response is 200 success. So basically now once the code check-ins has taken place, basically a event will actually invoke. Now when that event or job will invoke, it will require a Jenkins file which will have all the stages of that particular build. So if I just go to my dashboard, you'll see that there is a particular job, my new pipeline. Just for an example, I'll go to the configuration, and in the configuration part, you will see GitHub hook trigger uh, by polling. Then if you see the pipeline configuration, the pipeline script from source code management, and repository URL been provided. This is the credentials I already have created in GitHub. I have multiple credentials. This one is for my GitHub. And then the branch has been specified and the script path is Jenkins file. So if I just go to my source code repository and I would show you what's happening here. So basically this will establish the entire pipeline. What I'm saying is that in any given node, try to define a simple server and simple proxy object, then do a clone of the repository. Basically it will download the entire repository of the source code into the build node, and then just simply tag the images simple server and simple proxy. These are some sample images with the build ID so that it will be a unique image tagged. And this is the comment where I'm providing my username and then the name of the container. Basically this is the path, and then where to find the image for that, the image file or the Docker file for that. So this is the relative path of to my Docker file, and and this is the parent directory. This is the way you need to specify your Docker build arguments. Now you can do some testing. I'm not doing anything over here. In the push image category, I already have my Docker Hub credentials created, where I do have my Docker logins and API token and stuff like that. So based on that, it will just try to get the Docker registry and push these two images with appropriate build number. Now I'm creating Docker images. This command will just prune everything, and then in case of any error, I'm cleaning up if it fails, and finally I'm cleaning up the workspace. So this Jenkins file is actually will establish the entire pipeline for this particular build job, and once it is done, mm, basically this is updating a particular image with the build number, right? So that change here will trigger this particular pipeline. Now how you can add this Docker registry in your Spinnaker environment. So for that, uh, just need to do hal config provider, give a name to your Docker registry. Sorry, uh, give a name to your Docker registry, which is like for me like this one. Then username slash image name, the way I have shown, and then the username, and don't specify the password here while you're copying. You just keep it password. Then at the command prompt, it will actually prompt you to enter the password. That's the secure way of firing the command. So you need Halliard definitely. So these are the command. You can get this command in if you go to Spinnaker .io, you would see all these comment available over there, but just for your convenience, I have specifically mentioned this code here. But anyway, this is the way you can actually add your Docker registry to the Spinnaker environment, so that you can have multiple Docker registry. So you can choose your Docker registry here, Uh, y- you can have Azure Container Registry, AWS Container Registry, or Google Container Registry, and then simply, enter all these informations. If you want to install any, if you want to mention any specific tag change or tag number would trigger the job, you can do that too. So once it is done, what's going to happen is that the next stage, create DGOKD's cluster, would take place. That's again basically a job. So I already added my Jenkins uh, build master to this Spinnaker environment. So for that, what we're going to do is that, mm, yeah, so to add the CI, this this is the entry you need to make to your hell config file. Enable true master, name the master, then your base URL. In my case, it is my jenkins.vinepro.dev. But if you don't have domain name configured, you can simply mention your IP address :8080, then username and password. So this will add your Jenkins master to the Spinnaker environment so that you can select this master and you can get all the job listed here. So these are the jobs you would find here in your Jenkins. Now add KTS, if you see again the same thing, configuration. Now in this case, this Jenkins file basically do fire do curl command to create the cluster. So I'll show you that. So this particular Jenkins file residing in Spinnaker jobs, new cluster. No, not this one. 1 second. Job create cluster. So this, so again, it's actually downloading this particular create dgokts cluster sh. Then it is giving the execution permission and then executing it finally, and then removing it and cleaning the workspace over here. But actual code residing in create dgokts cluster.sh. So let's go to that. So it's this cluster. Okay, so if you see that doCTL or doCTL is actually the DigitalOcean own command line tool, where I'm saying that create a Kubernetes cluster with the name of this one, version of the Kubernetes, this one, this is the name of the data center, uh, tag demo and size of each of the nodes. And then uh, I'm saving the kubeconfig of that newly created cluster. Um, and then I'm setting the context to that particular newly created cluster. So everything you see here, that's actually you can see in live action in part 1 video. Uh, you would able to see that how it's actually getting executed and how it's working. But this is the way it's been set up. Now, once it is done, I have a manual stage. Now, manual stage basically, give a chance here to pause the entire pipeline to for the end user to do something for the operation team, like for this one, update Spinnaker to add the service account. Again, if you go back to the part 1 video, you'll understand this particular manual judgment will give me a chance to do certain manual configuration in my Spinnaker environment. So it will halt and it will get, give you this message to you. So this is create DGOK as cluster. The same way, deploy certificate manager, deploy Istio. These all are actually Jenkins job. Now I'd like you to understand the new Spinnaker V2 provider, where you can actually directly give the URL of the manifest file, and that will get executed by Spinnaker, and it will give you all the resource or final objects in the Kubernetes cluster. So to show you that, let me go to this deploy istio issuer. So again, uh, this configuration is getting triggered by a different pipeline. And then if we come to deploy cert issuer, you'd see that here I can provide like there is two options. One is text, where you can actually write down your manifest file directly, or you can actually fetch your manifest file from one of your artifactory or one of your Git code repository. And the convention of, or the nomenclature of the YAML file is something I'd like to explain. So some portions of this URL you have to you can define manually, and rest of it will be relative paths. So in Spinnaker it has to be https api.github.com, then repos organization repo. So repos till this portion is actually already predefined. For a personal GitHub repository, the username is the organization name, then the repo name, which is KTS practice, then contents. So this portion you have to construct of your own. Then after that, this is the relative path to a particular YAML file. Like in this case, if I just copy this one and paste it here, you would understand that this entire thing is pre-populated, predefined. Then Kubernetes istio sample production issue istio YAML. This is actually relative path to this particular YAML file. I can even show you this one. Um, Content Kubernetes istio sample production issue istio YAML. So you can add this directly here, and that will get executed. So not there is no more variation to the stages for Spinnaker in this particular example. Yes, one more thing I'd like to speak to you is that to execute any artifact, one thing you need is a Kubernetes account. Like for this one, deploy istio cert. If I just go to configuration, you'd see that the job asking for an account. A Spinnaker account corresponds to a physical Kubernetes cluster. If you are unsure which account to use, talk to your Spinnaker admin. So basically, this account you need to create. Now, how do you do that? At first, you have to choose the context of the cluster, and this all happens inside your Spinnaker environment. And then uh, there will be a service account.yaml file, and if you go to this particular repository, you'll find it out. Service account YAML, which is creating a namespace of Spinnaker, creating a service account, name Spinnaker service account, and then again creating a cluster role binding, Spinnaker admin, kind cluster role, name cluster admin. So let's just go like this one. So then you are assigning the context to the Kubernetes cluster. You are applying the service account YAML to create the service account. Then you are getting a token back. With the help of that token, you are setting credentials. Once you set the credentials, you are using that same credential to creating a Kubernetes account. And basically Halyard will actually let Spinnaker know to use this particular Kubernetes account to do any Kubernetes operation for that particular cluster. So this is the script, and you can see this particular script available here. Uh, mm, and then how do you add GitHub repository, right? So for the GitHub, you have to have a GitHub token. Again, same thing, hal config repository artifactory enable. Then you write that token in a file, name that file like GitHub underscore token or GitHub dash token, and then mm, provide your account name and just fire this command hal config artifact GitHub account add account name and token file. Why you are writing the token in a file? So that you do not need to enter it inline to the command line. So this is just a quick overview, the way the setup and all the configurations been created and executed. I hope this will help you to do the same, Tulen. Thank you.